Good morning and welcome to another episode of Supporting a Healthy Lifestyle. We're so excited for today's presentation on COVID-19 facts, myths, and fiction. Let's open with a word of prayer. Father God, thank you so much for bringing us here together for this presentation. It's a heavy presentation filled with lots of emotions. Please be with our presenter and the audience that we will experience peace and calmness as we review this topic. Help us to understand the things that are presented and apply them to our lives. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So today we have Dr. Sharice Davis with us. She is no stranger to us. She's back here again from before. So Sharice Davis Nelson, there we go, my bad. And she is a certified OBGYN doctor. She did her undergraduate work at University of California, Charles Drew, and completed her fellowship at McGee's Women's Hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she also did that at Loma Linda University as well. She holds a certification in genetics and clinical research, and she has been section chair for maternal fetal medicine at Loma Linda University Department of Gynecology. She has been a consultant for the Comprehensive Tobacco Program at the Loma Linda University, and she has also been clinical instructor and assistant professor for the Department of Gynecology at Loma Linda University. She has published several art abstracts as well as conducted oral and poster presentations, and she has partnered with colleagues and published articles. She has participated in research and lectured in various places. Over the years, she has been involved with community outreach projects such as Minority Association of Pre-Medical Students, Project for Progress, Youth and Science Enrichment Program, and Health Professional Recruitment Program as well. She has sat on several boards, including Loma Linda's IRB board, March of Dimes, and participated in quality improvement projects. Let's welcome now Dr. Sharice Davis Nelson.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Nelson. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Are you wushine?
I'm woosahing a little bit.
All right, very good. I understand that this is a very heavy topic, talking about COVID-19, the facts and fiction. We have so many myths out there. So we are excited to hear what you will have to say for us today.
Okay, so I think I have to run the slides myself, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just go to that. And then are you able to see it now or not yet?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, so bear with me. I just want to make sure that I don't have anything out of place. And I might, so we'll have to bear with me for that. Okay.
No problem. We'll be okay.
All right. So it should play. So today I'm going to be talking about COVID, the mystery, fact, and fiction. I'm used to, in the medical community, making a financial disclosure. So in full disclosure, I've been doing locums back and forth to Phoenix about a week to 2 weeks out of the month. And so because of all of the COVID surges, I did make more money because there was a higher need for me to take care of women or transport women from one hospital in Arizona to another, especially if they were in the ICU or in need of ICU care. COVID has also made it possible for more providers to make a profit by providing telehealth services, as everybody's been working from home. And it, unfortunately for me, delayed the ribbon cutting of my non-for-profit organization. So who am I? First, I'm a mother. We have a 3.5-year-old. I'm a wife, a daughter, sister, cousin. And I'm a physician, and this slide is not yet finished, but basically as I was changing my address from Arizona to California again, I been inducted into the Worldwide Association of Female Professionals. I'm a member of the Maternal Fetal Medicine Society, of the American Congress for Obstetrics and Gynecology, of the American Board of Medical Geneticists and Genomics, among other things. And then this is a blurry slide that I did because I'm interested in 3D ultrasound and MRI. And this was a case that we'd actually had in the past where there was a baby with a high airway obstruction. And so they can now do bronchoscopy to basically reconstruct the airway. And we can intervene before these babies are born in a procedure called an exit procedure. So I'm interested in fetal therapy, basically doing surgeries on moms while they're still pregnant. And I am an avid crafter. And so these are things that I've been finding, little coloring wusa items that when you lose someone you love, there's a hole in your heart which nothing can fill. So, excuse me, we had the prayer, and I'm actually going to change things around a little bit. Someone said my slides aren't advancing.
Right. Right.
All right. So let's try it again. Let me see if I go back, exit.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, really?
There you are. Yes.
It won't do it in StreamYard with me in PowerPoint. Okay. Let's try it again. So
there you go.
Here are the pictures of my daughter. Here are the pictures of my family. I didn't get time to post some of my siblings. And then this was supposed to be all of the various organizations, and then the 3D ultrasound and MRI. And the when you lose someone, there's a hole in your heart. So we've had the prayer. I'm actually going to do the acknowledgments in a moment of silence next. If you don't mind reading these for me.
No problem. And then you'll advance them as we go?
Yes.
Okay. So first we have, go back. Yes. No. So first we have Kathy Robertson. She was born in 1964 and passed away September the 20th, 2021. We have Randy Tran, Loma Linda alumnus, 1982, a Kaiser physician husband and father who passed away May 7th of this year, 2021. We have Bradley McGinnis Arnold, and he also passed away this year. James David McMillan died in August of this year. He was fully vaccinated in January. He went into the hospital September the 3rd. We put him in the wall. I'm sure she'll explain that more later on. September 19th, he was a family man, loving with children and grandchildren.
I think they put his ashes or somehow incorporated him into a wall.
Oh, I see. Very good, very good. Next slide. And then we have Robert Shaw, who passed away last year, April the 19th. He was from Texas. Oh, no, we have Samuel Naranjo from Texas next.
That's Samuel in that picture with his 6-month-old.
Oh, how nice. Beautiful baby. And then we have David Macias, who passed away August 26, 2021. Look at his beautiful family there. There is a message here.
Oops, sorry. I was trying to get rid of this thing on the side.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to read that.
Okay. Oh, you can't read it? Okay. It says,
no, I've had to say goodbye. No, I cannot read it. It's too small. Sorry.
It's okay. I can read it. It says, I've had to say goodbye to a fellow nurse, a young, healthy mother of 5 who has worked through this whole pandemic caring for others. She was admitted to the hospital with the Delta variant of COVID at 7 months pregnant. Fought not to be intubated, fought for her baby's life and her own, delivered a beautiful baby girl, ended up intubated and lost her fight this morning, all while her husband is also intubated in the ICU with COVID. And her poor kids face possibly losing both of their parents to this horrible virus. Think of that, 5 kids losing their parents at the same time. A newborn who will never know the warm embrace of her mommy and possibly never know the pride in her daddy's eyes. This is real. You guys, this is real. I'm sick of saying goodbye. I'm angry. I'm heartbroken. I'm tired. I'm terrified. I know that the vaccine isn't 100% effective against the virus. I know you can still get COVID. However, we do know that if vaccinated, the statistics are showing most will only have mild symptoms. Mild symptoms. Let's be real. How many of us are in perfect health? How many of us can say with 100% certainty that COVID wouldn't make us gravely ill, that COVID wouldn't rip us away from our children's lives? We can't.
And then we have Betty Taylor Owens, who passed away June the 20th, 2020 as well. We, the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren, found a virtuous woman in Betty Taylor Owens. I'm sorry, it's just too small.
Okay, I will remove what is small. I was just trying to see how long it was and where I cut it off on here. Okay, let's see. Oops. It's still too small, I'm guessing.
Yes, but I
Okay.
think we understand they're heartbroken over the loss of Miss Owens.
Okay, let me see if I can try one more time to make it bigger, and if not, we'll keep going.
So perhaps we can come back to it, time permitting.
Okay. If you want, you should try that to come back to
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And this also will be on Facebook and YouTube. So as we can get the writing a little bit larger, it will also be there for those to come back and read her significant story. Oh,
Okay. Let me just move the
picture.
pictures of her up there. And then I have this one, and we'll come back to, I've also got a pretty long thing for Julio.
Yes.
All right.
This
So
is a handsome young man here.
he was 34 years old when he passed of COVID. He was a probation officer for Riverside County.
Oh.
And he left at the time, 3 and now 4-year-old. And so this slide is basically just showing that childhood obesity is on the rise during the pandemic. The Black mortality gap has also worsened during the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, 31 million people fell into poverty and child vaccination rates fell. COVID overwhelmed hospitals, postponed cancer care, and other things. And then this was kind of something I thought was encouraging. So 100% of the football team at Arizona had been vaccinated. All the players, all the staff, all those affiliated with the program, they worked very hard and they took the health of the team very seriously so that they could stay healthy and hopeful. Sorry. And now if everyone will just join me for maybe 15, 20 seconds of silence to acknowledge all of those that we've lost. Okay, I'm gonna just play this.
We're going to start today by talking about some things that affect our health here in the US and in the rest of the world. In a few minutes, we'll talk about the pros and cons of the Biden administration's plan to help vaccinate the world against COVID. But we're going to start with a problem closer to home. We're talking about a nationwide shortage of nurses. Hospital officials say they are reaching a crisis point as hospital ICUs fill up again because of the latest COVID variant, even as they lose staff to burnout and to more lucrative temporary positions out of state. To talk about this, we decided to call someone we've been checking in with throughout the pandemic. That's the CEO of the Scotland County Hospital in Memphis, Missouri, Dr. Randy Tobler. He's in a more rural part of the state, and he's back with us now. Dr. Tobler, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
My pleasure. Great to reconnect, Michelle.
Likewise. So, how are things going? I mean, what have the last couple of months been like since we haven't chatted?
Right now, we're coming up for air after being going down maybe for the third time during August and early September. Finally, things are moderating. But starting in August, the ground zero in Missouri was down in Springfield in the southwest part of the state for the Delta surge, and it gradually moved northeast where we are and really hit us harder than the winter surge did, and that combined with the progressive nursing shortage that has just gotten worse and worse as the pandemic has gone on, really was a perfect storm to bring us to our knees.
And why is that? If nurses are leaving, what have they said about why, or have they told you why?
It's largely people are jumping for money. I've heard $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 signing bonuses, shift differentials that are just vastly out of our league. We've tried to combat that by increasing our scale for nurses, but even at that, it's loyalty to the hospital and the community and that neighborhood feel that is keeping some nurses. But we've lost 5 through the 18 months of the pandemic thus far.
In the first wave of this crisis, another issue was that this was before vaccines. Hospital workers getting sick. Has that been an issue?
Yes. If you have someone who either because of personal encounter with COVID or because of a family member and they have to care for them or quarantine, which has happened, then we're a nurse down. And when you're already having vacancies in your nursing staff, where do you pull the people from? It's been increasingly difficult. And I just am so thankful for the staff that keeps answering the bell. They keep charging up the hill every time we ask them to. I'm so proud of them.
Well, now there are vaccines available. President Biden just this month issued a series of mandates, including one covering some 17 million healthcare workers at facilities that receive federal funding. Some administrators have been saying that they're worried that staff could quit over this. I understand that you don't actually have a vaccine mandate at your hospital right now. Is that accurate?
That's true. And actually, ironically, 2 days before the president's speech, when he announced that mandate that will be coming, we'd actually sent out mailers to nurses throughout the region and even the state saying, hey, come take a look at us because we don't have a mandate.
So you were hoping it would be a draw. You were hoping the fact that you don't have a vaccine mandate would be a draw for you.
Yeah.
But you're not worried that your staff will get sick or that the patients will be exposed? That wasn't a concern?
It is a concern, but everyone wears N95 masks, whether they're vaccinated or not, when they're giving patient care. And again, we have to balance the risk of staff getting sick and maybe leaving us temporarily or not having staff at all because we make it a mandate and they jump off the ship. Because that's the other thing, the fatigue and the burnout in the nursing realms when you're dealing with these incredibly sick patients and having to witness patients dying without their family nearby, the emotional, the physical, the professional toll on nursing is just tremendous.
Wow. Are you confident, or at least are you hopeful that there won't be any more surges in your part of Missouri?
I am hopeful. I'm not confident because we're just not seeing the vaccination rate accelerate like I'd like to. In our 4-county area that we serve, the maximum, the best rate of fully vaccinated folks is about 35%. There's just a lot of vaccine resistance. Usually where I've seen people come to vaccination, sadly, is when it's not 6 degrees of separation, usually 1 or 2 degrees of separation from someone that gets gravely ill or dies, sadly. That's often when people will pull the trigger and get the vaccine who have been resistant previously.
Dr. Job, I know it's hard watching people suffer like this and working so hard. If you don't mind my asking it this way, like, what's the worst thing about all this? What hurts the most?
What hurts the most is people that you work with and the people you've taken care of. You've delivered their babies. You've operated on them, for crying out loud. And in this particular instance, because of that gravitational pull of the viral videos on the social media, and some people, sadly, with my credentials that are spreading false information, they believe that over someone that I thought we had a great relation, a trusting relationship. That hurts. That hurts docs, nurses, all who are trying to encourage people to do the right thing and get the vaccination.
Well, Dr. Tilber, we sure do appreciate your talking with us from time to time, and we certainly wish you the best as you continue to, fight through this thing. That was Dr. Randy Tobler, CEO of the Scotland County Hospital in Memphis, Missouri. Dr. Tobler, we thank you so much for.
Okay, so these two articles were on Apple News this morning, discussing the COVID-19 vaccine gap between rich and poor nations keeps widening, and that we will not boost our way out of this pandemic as 70 million Americans remain unvaccinated. And you probably can't read this either, right, Jeanette?
No, not at all.
Okay, so this says, I'm just going to read the bold parts. It says, we've got more people dying in hospitals than did in the first wave, and almost 85 to 90% of those people are unvaccinated. We've got nobody, to my knowledge, that's died at a hospital from the vaccine, and yet all of the people that are in the hospital 20 days or longer are unvaccinated. He used to, this is coming from the hospital CEO in South Carolina. His name is Mark Nosaka of Piedmont Medical Center in Rock Hill. And he mentioned this on September the 23rd at a business breakfast. He said that in general, he didn't believe in vaccination, but then he decided he didn't want to be one of those people that's in the hospital for 20 days on a ventilator, restrained, and could have gotten a vaccine. He then shared an anecdote about a couple in their 60s. They had other conditions. She was vaccinated, he wasn't. She was sick for 7 days. He was sick for 20 or more days in the ICU. Tell people to make their choice, but we're just trying to save lives, he said. His comments come in South Carolina, among the states that have the lowest percentages of their populations fully vaccinated against COVID-19, according to the CDC's COVID-19 vaccine distribution and administration data tracker. As of 6 a.m. on the 22nd of September, 2.3 million South Carolinians have been fully vaccinated, or 46.3% of the state's population, according to the CDC. And then this is a picture of Meghan Markle now. I don't know, now that they're not royal anymore, but she had a miscarriage in the midst of COVID. I was trying to find a picture of John Legend and his wife, who also had a loss during COVID. And so we've seen more stillbirths, we've seen more preterm births, we've seen more preeclampsia. We just keep seeming to lose people, babies, during this pandemic. And so my plea, my request is to make informed choices and decisions, and sometimes sacrifices. We have to decide, like for me, my toddler, were we going to let her go to school because she's too young to be vaccinated? But if you think about the vaccine, people often say, well, they don't have enough data. We don't know enough about the COVID vaccine. And that's true. We don't know enough about COVID. It hasn't been around for very long. The reason it's COVID-19 is because it came about in 2019, right? So we don't have 10 years of data. But COVID is the only virus I've ever seen in my entire career, which would have started in 2001 when I started medical school. So for 20 years, I have never seen a virus where you think that people are doing better. They're cruising on the ventilator or on heart-lung bypass, which we call ECMO. They seem like everything is going to be okay. They're going to turn around, and then within a day or two, they die. And they don't die of quote unquote COVID. So people will often say, oh, well, how do you know it was COVID that killed them? Because of the way it happens, right? So I had a patient the day I left Phoenix in August at the end of the month. The ICU doctor was called, they text messaged me that morning. She's cruising on heart-lung bypass. She's doing great. And then that night we're in the car and on our way home, and he calls me back and he says, she was doing great all day, and now she just showered blood clots everywhere. He's like, I'm going to try to give her clot busting medication, but I don't think she's going to survive this. And sure enough, that night, the resident text messaged me. She had passed. She had 7 children that were, I believe, 18 and younger. And then I asked him, the ICU doctor, his name is Dr. Feldman, I said, how many people have we lost from COVID? And so he sent me this text message. Our team has had about 550 deaths. I don't have pictures or descriptions. We try to keep our heads down and keep working. But it's heartbreaking. Every time you lose somebody, every time the ICU is full and you're telling a nurse or a doctor, I can't accept your patient because we're on diversion. The ICU's beds we have no beds. You know that if they've called the other good hospitals in the area, that when they say we're going to keep going down the list, they're going literally down the list to hospitals that are not very good. And so I had to turn away somebody the day I left. So that day that our patient died, someone else, they were calling, she needed to be in the ICU. We had no beds. And so I knew I was essentially letting her die in the middle of nowhere, like 3.5 hours away from Phoenix. And so it's hard. And I think when people say compassion fatigue, it's like when you're writing and you're, learning how to write in cursive or penmanship, and your finger starts to get calloused because the pencil starts to wear on your finger. And it's not because you don't want to do a good job at it. It's not because you don't care. It's just, it starts to hurt. So either you put one of the little squishy grips on there or you get a callus. And I think we've been dealing with COVID so long at this point. It's been almost 2 years. People are just tired. We don't know what else to do. The medications that we do know that are effective, we're running out of them. And then things that don't work, people read in some nowhere place that we should be giving them deworming medications or Plaquenil. And so then you got to deal with all of that foolishness of people livers failing because they took the wrong medication. It's really hard on the medical team. And I think people don't understand that. So when we had this family conference for this woman that went on heart-lung bypass, it was her father and her husband there. And the ICU doctor said, please tell everyone you know to get vaccinated. And they said, we're trying now, we're getting everybody vaccinated that we can. And he said, because I'm out of hospital beds. And to me, it was just one of those light bulb moments. You're just like, this is not made up. This is not some hoax. It's not some prank. It's not some ploy to get people vaccinated against their will. It's basically, in order to participate in this society, you have to believe that people are not out to get you. That if, just like God didn't put the virus here, but he may have made a way out. And we have to be willing to humble ourselves and not have our hearts so hard that we are unable to listen to reason and ration. Before I took my daughter home from the hospital, they asked me if I'd give her hepatitis B vaccine. She was like 4 pounds and like maybe 5 days old. And I'm like, what is the chances she's going to get hepatitis B in my house? Like, I don't have hepatitis B. My husband doesn't have hepatitis B. She's not going to be like swapping needles with anybody at home or like having a blood transfusion. So no, she doesn't need hepatitis B vaccine yet. COVID, on the other hand, if they had offered me at 6 months or a year, or when they start giving the flu shots, I probably would have taken it, right? Because we've seen there's been a 4-year-old in Riverside died of COVID, no pre-existing conditions. At first, we were complacent because they were saying it's just affecting older people. But then you start to lose people that aren't that old, and they're not unhealthy, and they're not overweight. They're not like it's not discriminating anymore. It's just, it reminds me of the scripture where it says the devil is walking about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And he's using whatever tactics he can, whatever division, whatever nonsense. What if it sounds good, then somebody's posting it on Facebook and then it gets copied 50,000 times before you can even say it's not true. Anyway, so make the best informed decisions you can. Before you propagate anything, fact check it. Make sure it's valid information, because otherwise you're part of the problem. So we had to decide, my husband and I, are we going to put her in school? She finally got accepted to the Montessori school in Redlands after 2.5 years or whatever, 2 years, 1.5 years, 2 years of being on a wait list. And it's like, well, what do? We looked at like the trends of COVID. You look at, well, what's the likelihood that she's going to get it at school? She's only going to have a mask off when she's eating food. All 5 of her teachers are vaccinated. It's kind of like, well, for now we'll say okay, and then we'll reevaluate if we get more information, right? So that's the other plea. If you're not vaccinated, don't go get a fake vaccine card or try to pretend you're vaccinated and not wear a mask. It's just not worth it. And then, sorry, I'm not looking at the camera because I can't see you guys. Okay, so don't stop learning. Fact check your sources. There are, on this, I did like a search for how many webinars or information there is about COVID. And there were 77 things that you could learn about what's happening with COVID. And then these, I don't know, it's in the background. I said for the babies, but let's see if I can bring it to the front. It doesn't matter. Okay, so this, a lot of what I do is for those I've lost. The best way I can think of to honor the legacy of those that have come before us is to acknowledge it and speak truth, because there's power in truth. So this is my baby cousin. He passed in 2019. Luckily, he didn't have to endure any of this nonsense with COVID. And then this is my grandmother. She's 83, I think now. And my cousin's dad and his wife. And then my brother is back here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Dave.
Oh, that's not the one.
Pfizer and BioNTech have announced good results from a trial of their COVID-19 vaccines in children aged 5 to 11 years old. They now plan to submit their findings to the FDA for review. There's been a surge in cases among children and a shaky start to a school year with millions of unvaccinated kids back in the classroom. NPR's Allison Aubrey joins us with the latest. Hi, Allison.
Good to be here, Ari.
Tell us what Pfizer and BioNTech are saying about the results of these trials.
The companies say the vaccine was safe, it was well tolerated, and it triggered a strong immune response. The children in the trial got a smaller dose, about a third of what's given to adults and older children. And the vaccine makers say the side effects are about the same as those seen in teens and young adults, such as a sore arm or muscle aches. In a statement from Pfizer today, Albert Bourla, the chairman and CEO of the company, said the trial results provide a foundation for seeking authorization of the vaccine for children 5 to 11 years old, and the company plans to submit them to the FDA with urgency, he said.
A foundation for seeking authorization. So what are the next steps to getting authorization?
Well, the FDA officials have said that they will let the data guide them here, and they hope to have pediatric COVID-19 vaccines available in the coming months, they say. I spoke to David Kimberlin, a pediatric infectious disease doctor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He also serves as a liaison from the American Academy of Pediatrics to the CDC's advisory committee. Here he is.
Now, of course, it has to be authorized by the Food and Drug Administration first, and then it has to be recommended for use by the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. And it appears to me now that we're back on track for an October, maybe even mid to late October recommendation.
He says it's a very fluid situation, but certainly the FDA receiving data from Pfizer sets the process in motion.
And there's time pressure to get this done quickly, right? Haven't pediatricians been urging the FDA to move as fast as possible?
That's right. Both Pfizer and Moderna expanded their clinical trials in children, and this was done to ensure they could pick up on rare adverse events. Now, these trials are ongoing, but back in August, as the Delta variant fueled the surge in cases among children, the American Academy of Pediatrics said that Delta had kind of changed the equation. Given the urgency, the group said the FDA should strongly consider authorizing vaccines based on data from the initial cohort or the initial group of children. So, there's some tension, Ari, between wanting to inoculate children against the virus as soon as possible, but also to make sure that the vaccine is safe and that the benefits do outweigh the risks. Dr. Kimberlin says the process is working, and advisors to the FDA will weigh in, and they will speak up if they see any concerns as they review the data.
Parents can be, really confident if the authorization is made and the recommendation is made. They can be really confident that it was done right, that it was based on the data, that it was based on science.
And this comes amid a surge in cases in kids.
Not only a surge in cases, but also child hospitalizations are up, right?
That's right. Most cases among kids are mild, but many pediatric clinics and ERs are full, especially in states that have been hardest hit by this surge. There are just so many cases among kids right now, Dr. Kimberlin says.
250,000 children every week over the last, couple of 3 weeks being diagnosed with COVID. These are outpatient and inpatient, of course, but those numbers are unprecedented.
So that's the latest on vaccine shots for children. What about news that we might get this week on booster shots for adults? What's the latest there?
Sure. Well, the FDA is expected to announce a decision any time now, really, Ari, on a Pfizer booster. CDC advisors voted late last week in favor of boosters for people 65 and up and those at high risk. Now, the agency typically follows the advisor's guidance here, and the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices is scheduled to meet this Wednesday. So we could hear a decision very soon, Ari.
That's NPR's Allison Aubrey with the latest on coronavirus vaccines. Thanks, Allison.
All right. So you probably can't read this either. Okay, so
no, I can read it. I can see
okay.
it.
Awesome.
Oh, you want it? Sure. The Biden administration has vowed to build back better from COVID-19, particularly in producing more robust health systems that rectify health inequities. If health systems are to be part of the solution to ensure health equity, one thing is clear: child health must be at the forefront. This is not only because half of the US children today are people of color, which are disproportionately impacted by health disparities, while less than 1 in 4 seniors are. This is not only because the human and economic benefits of improving health at the beginning of life are much greater than trying to repair health later. These alone would be sufficient to focus our attention on children. But there is more. Childhood is the time when actions to promote health have the most pronounced impact upon lifelong health. Childhood is the time when society has a particular responsibility to ensure equitable access to critical supporters, buffers, and equal opportunities for success. And the time when the nation is most at risk is that responsibility is not met. We depend upon a healthy and well-educated next generation to be prosperous. We cannot achieve this without dramatically reducing health disparities by race and socioeconomic status as the next generation grows into adulthood. Reducing health disparities is not merely treating disease, but more importantly, is about ensuring access to health and behavioral care for children to ensure optimal development. Providing equal opportunity for success for all children is a core American value across the political spectrum.
All right, and then we don't have time. I was going to try to include, for my cousin, we had done these with all of our family, saying, for him to rest in peace. And then there was a 12-minute video we don't have time for, but basically end with that they've reopened Broadway, and they sing, I'll just play the end of it, how lucky we are to be alive right now, and then I'll be open for questions. Let's see.
Hey, Up First listeners, it's
I don't know where
Rachel, and we've got a bonus episode for you today that you're not going to want to miss. After a year away, Broadway's lights are back on. From Wicked to Chicago to Hamilton, some of the...
I think everyone on Broadway, everyone in New York City really is looking forward to.
This is Riza Takahashi. Since I'm not in any Broadway shows at the moment, I'm staying active in the Broadway community by founding Celebrate Asian Joy project. And the organization is currently producing a music video with a cast and creative team of Asian artists. And that's basically my entire summer. I've been working on this since May. It gives me mixed feelings. I'm really excited for everyone who's going back to work, but I can't help but feel that I'm not part of that exhilarating feeling in the rehearsal room. The theaters are open, so that's the bigger matter, and that we can finally do what we love, but also I'm letting myself feel a little bit of a hole in my heart where my show isn't coming back on Broadway.
So this is Crystal Joy Brown, and I'm coming in from my dressing room. We are hours before we have our first ever audience. We did our run through yesterday, and it was so bizarre because it felt familiar, but I also think that there's something that's changed. And today will be the first day that I get to participate in a collective consciousness of us all being together and being able to celebrate life. Look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. How true are those lyrics? How important are those lyrics right now? Totally different meaning than they've ever had before. So here we go. This is Broadway, y'all. Look around, how lucky we are to be alive right now.
Okay, that's all I have.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. What an interesting topic. So where can we find facts about COVID-19 vaccine? You know, we get a lot of newsreels from the different social platforms. And, you know, when we Google, so many things come up. And like you were mentioning, people would like to take the Plaquenil and the ivermectin and all those things. Where can we find the most relevant facts?
So I think first and foremost, if there's ever a question, I tend to go to something called Up to Date. It's basically a compilation of the most informed sound medical judgment. And some hospitals, like for example, where I'm working now, Riverside Community, or I think they're going to rename it HCA Healthcare Riverside. They have institutional access to Up to Date. And basically, even so, if you have that, or if you have access to it, you can even send somebody a 30-day pass, a guest pass. And so that would be my first go-to. Often then, if I can't find a good answer that way, I'll go on PubMed, or honestly about ivermectin, I must admit, my husband and I, we used Snopes to figure out if it was true. And it said it wasn't. And then they've got this thing called the Herman Cain Awards, which, you know, I guess they've renamed them from Darwin Awards to now Herman Cain, from when he went to the Trump rally without a mask and then caught COVID, and unfortunately passed away from COVID. And so, you know, we don't ever want to do things out of lack of knowledge, right? So if you don't know and you can't find it, feel free to ask me and I will look it up and get back to you pretty quickly usually. Because we can't propagate misinformation. So I couldn't find the email that I had sent to everybody about the vaccine. And I think it was like 6 times more likely than if you hadn't had the vaccine that you would get myocarditis, which is what everybody was worried about, this heart inflammation. Well, should we not get it because of the heart inflammation? And the answer was no, you should still get it. And I asked a friend even whose son had heart inflammation. I said, you know, knowing everything that you know, would you still recommend it? Or am I going to feel guilty if I tell people to get it and something bad happens, right? And she said, no, I think that the risks of COVID still outweigh the benefit of not having the vaccine. And so in that same article, I think it was from the New England Journal of Medicine, they basically commented that without the vaccine and getting COVID, you were 18 times more likely to have heart inflammation. And you were more likely to have other random things like blood clots, bleeding, massive hemorrhaging, strokes, heart attacks, just these weird things that just don't typically happen after you get sick, right? Like once you think you're getting better, most of the time people actually get better, but not with COVID. It does these weird things. And so one last thought about that. People will often say, well, we don't have any long-term data on the vaccine. And I said, that's true. However, we don't have a lot of long-term data on COVID. But what we do know about COVID is that it's in the nerves because it makes people lose their sense of taste and smell. Other viruses that I can think of that go to the nerves are like chickenpox. And guess what? Chickenpox long-term, you never really get rid of it.
Right.
It comes back as what, Jeanette?
Shingles.
It does. It comes back as shingles.
Back.
And
we have a vaccine for that.
We do. And what does HSV come back as?
The herpes?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know this one.
Cold sores.
Oh,
so
okay.
you get stressed out, right? And then somebody says, "Oh, I've got this cold sore. I was very stressed and whatever." Or for unfortunately for some people who have genital ulcers, right? They get an HSV outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
But we have medications for it, and we don't really have a good therapy other than the antivirals for it.
Right.
Okay,
Each
but
episode, right?
Right.
Each episode you have to treat. Yes.
HIV. We all know AIDS. You never really get rid of it. It's just there.
Yes.
You may feel okay. You may be asymptomatic. You may not show signs and symptoms for 10, 20 years, right? But then eventually AIDS comes back.
Exactly.
And then we know HPV. What does that one come back as?
That's the cervical cancer.
Cervical cancer and warts.
Yes.
Okay, so all of these things that we can't really cure, and they come back. So what is COVID going to come back as in 10, 15, 20 years when our immune systems are relaxed and forget we're exposed? What is that going to look like?
Right.
We don't know.
You're not going to know. Yeah.
We'll find out. And I don't want that for my daughter. I don't want to find out COVID's peekaboo on my 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely understand. And then we have a question from Maria Thorne. She says, why is it that they say that the patient is doing well, then all of a sudden it seems like the person has turned for the worst, and then they die? I think that's to what you're speaking to.
Right. So I don't want to get into the weeds and lose focus, but I don't think COVID is a naturally occurring virus. I think it probably was made or manipulated or something. And so I think that's why with all of the waves, and it didn't really behave like we thought with the surges, we thought, oh, it'll come back in the winter, but then it's back already and it was the middle of the summer. So it doesn't make sense, right? So it does certain things that don't behave like a naturally occurring virus. And for that reason, I think it tricks us. It's like a tricksy. You think they're doing better. We're lulled into complacency, thinking it's not really that big of a deal to have COVID. And then it does something in the body. We don't know what, and we don't know how. And then it makes them have this massive bleeding or clotting or heart attacks or heart failure. I mean, it does all kinds of things in every organ system. It affects the liver. It affects everything.
Yes, yes. And I think that's a wonderful takeaway that you just had mentioned there of COVID affecting the nervous system. Because definitely, like you were saying, these viruses that attack the nervous system live in our nervous system for the rest of our lives. And so we have seen from COVID-19 from 2020 to some of those patients now in 2021,
the long
haulers, they continue with these, respiratory problems and all types. Some have not even gotten their taste back still yet. So we have to be very cognizant of what can happen to us if we're not vaccinated. And I think you had a picture there of, I think it was Julio, he the one that was the young one that was 34 years old, right?
So unfortunately, he had COVID before the vaccine was available. And I think if he had been able to live to the point where we would have had a vaccine, he would have taken it. And so I think that's my other request, my other ask. People say, my body, my choice. I don't want this vaccine. Okay, but it affects us all, right? We're seeing it. It's affecting the lifespan. Our lifespan is now less because of COVID. It affects your family. So like Davi got COVID, they think at Great Wolf Lodge. She took her kids and her family to an indoor water park without a mask. unvaccinated. I don't know. It's like, those are the things where I was saying, make sacrifices if necessary, right? Go to the beach, go outside, go somewhere not inside where you may get exposed. And if you choose not to be vaccinated, maybe you have your spouse get vaccinated, or whoever is going to be the trustee of your little children. Hopefully you have a will. I don't know if Dobby and Daniel had a will, but if not, get one and tell that person, right? We've chosen not to be vaccinated. Therefore, you may have custody of our orphan. See if they're okay with it, because it doesn't just affect you. It affects all of us. And the longer we let it mutate, so this is the geneticist in me, right? The longer it's out there mutating and multiplying, the more opportunity we create for error in the genetic code. So that's the mutations, right? It's replicating, and then it says, oops, I made a typo, and it doesn't do a spell check. It just keeps multiplying the mistake. Right. So that's how you get the variants, because we haven't squashed it, because everybody's afraid of one protein, the spike protein, which is in the vaccine. So I asked somebody, okay, do you think that you're going to do better with one protein or the whole virion of COVID? Oh, probably one protein. Okay, then if it's 6 times more likely to give you heart inflammation, but 18 times if you get COVID, that's saying, and then it's associated with all these other things. Right. It's probably safer to get the one protein than the whole virus.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Davis. We really enjoyed this talk. We have several people that tuned in, Sharon, Helen, and Jay, that really appreciated you putting their loved ones there on this platform. We thank you so much. So let's go ahead and end with the word of prayer. Father God, thank you so much for bringing this servant to give us such important information. Please be with everyone under the sound of my voice for their loss of their loved ones and how they will move forward and take care of those who are left behind. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.